And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
We believe we'll be the winners. Okay. Trump says they think they won, but he said it that way, in the Trumpian way, and it's a threat to our democracy. It's like he was lighting the Constitution on fire. But when Joe Biden says when the votes are counted, we will have won, because of that conditional carve out, it's fine. What he says is fine, no problem. It's all great. Sure. He's also telling us that he's going to be a uniter. And I want to address this for a little bit here. The notion of Joe Biden as a uniter under the circumstances. Play 12 here.
But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as a Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone, and it demands a duty of care for all Americans. That is precisely what I will do.
Yeah. Just like the Obama administration was all about all Americans, right? Not about elections have consequences, deal with it, Republicans. Sorry, my way or the highway. I got a pen and a phone. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. You can't stop me. The media's in my pocket. What are you going to say about it? For 8 years, and Joe Biden was a part of that administration, the vice president. Now he wants to be Mr. Jolly old grandpa that we can all count on, wants to bounce us all on his knee and have him touch my blonde leg hair from the sun and talk to Corn Pop, man. I was, no joke, man. I was out back and I had a chain and Corn Pop had this rusty, this thing, man. And I said, Corn Pop. Yeah, sure he is. I speak Biden too. Yeah, that's the way that it is. I mean, I do remember I feel a few times drunk enough in college that I did speak Biden. It's a little bit like what you'd hear from the old Star Wars with Jabba the Hutt. That's a little bit what Bidenism speaks like. I like that. I like that one too. But yeah, he's gonna govern as an American president. He's gonna just kind of yell, all the time. And his phrases will kind of just trail off. No apparent reason. Gonna have a cadence just like this. No joke, man. No joke. Period. Yeah, sure. That's what's going to happen, folks. The problem that Biden's going to come up against, if in fact he does become the president, which is something we do have to take seriously, and it is even probable right now. Doesn't mean it's done. I'm fighting for Trump. I told you we're in the trench, but, just because you're in the trench doesn't mean that the Germans aren't going to overrun the trench. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I mean, that's the reality. But we're in that trench. We're going to fight. We're a fight till the end. Biden represents a party that wants to use the levers of power to the maximum. You'll notice that the things that Democrats want aren't going to be things that I would say in any event, oh yeah, that will make my life or your life better. It's not as though they want to focus on certain things that if they accomplish, it'll make life better for you and me. And so we'll be the beneficiaries in some ways of a Democrat presidency. No, it's not the case at all. In fact, if anything, you're more likely to see the kind of international entanglements and the interventionist mentality from the elites that's led to, which Republicans absolutely have been guilty of too in the past, but not Trump, but has led to military engagements abroad and long and continued and sustained occupations of foreign countries that we don't want to be in anymore. You're going to have higher taxes. Everybody's going to have higher taxes, which is not going to be a good thing, not going to make you happy. There's a lot of problems here. There's really no upside. There's nothing I can point to about a Biden presidency. Oh, maybe for those of you that are really into more drugs, I know that, was it Oregon decriminalized all drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin. So that's really going to be helpful for that place. They already have, I mean this, Portland, Oregon has a pandemic of mental illness that's happening right now, and that's playing out before our eyes with people who are Biden voters and who are Antifa. They're deranged. I mean, they've got a problem. They need need clinical medical assistance. And, you know, it reminds me a little bit of like the berserkers from old Viking times. And the berserkers would get themselves up into a religious inspired frenzy, and they thought they were doing this on behalf of Odin, and that they would go to Valhalla, you know, their version of the great a kind of heaven for heroes, and they would run into battle pretty much naked and paint their bodies with different things. And they were actually fierce warriors, because if you run in there and you're all jazzed up and decide that you're going to swing that axe around and you don't care if you live or die, in fact, you're hoping that somebody punches your ticket because you're going to go to Valhalla and get to hang out with all the Valkyries. Hey-oh, Valkyries, yeah. You're pretty effective warrior. Antifa is also crazed. I mean, these people are nuts. They're not as brave or as useful as berserkers, of course, but what they do has value to the Democrat Party, because we know that at any event where there's a any college event where there's a conservative speaker, anytime there's going to be a political outcome that the left doesn't like, they can count on their Antifa berserkers, in a sense, to take to the streets, to light things on fire, to throw things at cops. I mean, there was a woman. This was in New York City, in the West Village, and there's video of it. There's a woman who, I think she's from a small town in Pennsylvania, and I don't know if she's here studying or, who knows. People come to New York for all kinds of stuff. She must be in her 20s, and she, right up in the face of an NYPD officer who's done nothing to her. He's just standing there observing and making sure that laws are respected by this group that did not respect laws. They lit things on fire. They engaged in vandalism, the whole thing. Disorderly conduct. And she looks at him and she sort of spits out the word fascist in his face. And this is right on video. I mean, you see it. And then, I don't want to say it, basically just hocks a loogie. I think that's the technical term. Right in this cop's face. Just spits with, really kind of, I don't want to get too gross again, but I mean, really searches around for a good one and spits right in his face on video. If you're going to tell me that 130-pound, 25-year-old woman is not out of her mind and needs medical assistance for her mental health issues, apart from the fact that she's an ardent Biden voter, I don't know what to tell you. It is a pandemic of mental illness from these people who are radicalized leftists. We're seeing it all over the place. I mean, if I knew somebody who had done that to a police officer, I would, first of all, that's not somebody I would spend any time around or near, but I would assume that person really needs to be institutionalized, honestly. I mean, really needs serious psychiatric assistance. And this is like standard operating procedure for thousands and thousands of ardent, RBG-loving, Biden-voting, Kamala Harris-worshiping leftists. We're supposed to not pay attention to this? This is not an observable fact that should put people on edge a little bit? What the heck is going on here? But, friends, as you know, they'd rather you just ignored all of this. They'd rather that you think that this is on both sides. I mean, that's, of all the lies out there, that's among my least favorite. I don't like any of the lies, but that's the one that really bothers me. in a special category. They just lie and lie and lie again about so many things, but the pretense that our side does what their side does is just beyond. I mean, this is just beyond the pale. Come on. Where have there been any riots? They had to call in the National Guard in Portland. And for every person who was rioting and every person who was the justification for that National Guard being called in, there was not, I guarantee you, not a single Trump-supporting registered Republican in the group. And a lot of Biden supporters and people not only who vote for Biden, but who are part of the activist community that's working professionally to support Joe Biden. You know, they're social workers who are also, you know, online and active in groups that are trying to, you know, elevate socialist policies for the Democrat Party to implement in this country, right? These are people, this is a big part of their identity. It's who they are. And Joe Biden is going to be their president. Now, I know he's going to be the president for everybody. If he wins, we're looking at the future pathways here. But if Joe Biden wins, he is going to be a president that is representing the interests of the lunatics in Portland more than he's representing the interests of people that wear MAGA hats and want a country run by common sense. I really wish that the Trump administration, I mean, now there's a lot of second guessing that's going to go on about this campaign, but just that notion of Trump running a common sense presidency. And we've let the left hijack that term so they can apply it to gun control. And then and it's not common sense at all. The stuff that they're talking about on gun control is idiotic. It wouldn't help anybody, and it's an infringement on Second Amendment rights. But we've let them get away with using that terminology, with applying it to their side only, when really one of the great things about the Trump presidency is the overwhelmingly common sense approach that it takes to so many things. You know, yeah, it's a rational position to think about Americans' interests as the American government before the interests of the rest of the world. You know, that Trump came in and thought, what I can do for the American people is more important than what the UN, General Assembly vote would show me. That's a revolutionary thought. Tells you so much. That approach is so different from what we had in this country before, particularly under Democrats, but even somewhat under Republicans. It really tells you a lot about where we are right now and where we're going if we don't pull out a final Trump victory, which I certainly hope we do.
It will call into question the legitimacy of the democracy for a lot of people. They'll just say, this is baloney. This doesn't work. We keep getting all the votes that in a normal majoritarian race you should win the presidency with. And this system, which dates from a slaveholding constitutional founding, doesn't work for us. It's very difficult to change, but I think it'll deepen cynicism, deepen distrust. It is what it is. It is how the system works. But you can't say that young people coming up, people who worked hard to do whatever they could to get their guy across the line, got him across the line, and then see again that because of the system they don't win, that's going to cast doubt on it for them.
Because of the system, you see, if we don't get our way, the system is wrong. But if the system gives us what we want, I actually appreciate what this guy Terry Moran at ABC News, again, every bit as left-wing and bullcrap as CNN is, but just a little better at hiding it. A little bit better, not much. If we get the result we want, then the system is fine. You see, this is where you can understand that the left has no comprehension of what principle is. Principle is there are things that are true, irrespective of who that thing being true benefits. And if we build a system based upon principles and with rules in place that should be respected by both sides, then the outcome has nothing to do with the legitimacy of the system. But the left-wing mentality reverses this around and says to you, the outcome is all that matters. And therefore, if the outcome is not what we want, the system itself is corrupt, decrepit, must be overthrown, must be changed. It's a system as the guy. First of all, the tie to slavery. They always say this. That's actually the historical illiteracy of liberals about our constitutional system is amazing. But then again, they elevate nonsense history all the time as part of the liberal project. So that's not a surprise. But I just want you all to hear this from them so that we all understand, so we all know we're on the same page here, that they only will accept the outcome they like. I am telling you right now, and I hold to this, if we bring these lawsuits and we do not have the goods, the proof that there were problems here, that there was either cheating or even just issues that come up that are, irregularities. There are mistakes that are made in a count as well, but those mistakes can result in an improper count. But if we can't prove it, if we don't have, if we get access, which is a big question, and can't prove it, and Joe Biden comes out with more votes, Joe Biden's the president of the United States, friends. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, but, were there things that happened here with the mail-in ballots and COVID that the whole thing is shady? Yeah, but mail-in ballots are not illegal. So let's be clear about that. That is part of the system. That is part of the rules that we have. How they're counted now and how they're put out on how the timeline works of when they were sent, that really matters. But I will accept a loss if a loss is something that ends up being the reality, which I think is very, very possible at this point. The one thing that I will not have an easy time dealing with is if we lose the Senate, too. Play clip 6.
Well, I'm not sure whether I'll need to or not. We don't know who won the presidential race yet. We'll see what the American people decide they want their government to be. I don't know whether I'm going to be the majority leader or the minority leader. As I've told you, I've been both. Majority is better. And but we're awaiting the judgment of the American people.
So if that happens, which I don't think it will, I think we're going to hold, Republicans are going to hold the Senate. But if Joe Biden wins and Democrats take the Senate, it is, and I don't say this kind of stuff to you, and I didn't say it when Obama won in 2012, but it's break the glass time. It's like, okay, we're in for a rough ride here, friends. Because they will, just the same way when Obama had that supermajority, what did? They rammed through Obamacare, not a single Republican vote. They thought that they were in such a majority position that they could just use the system to get everything that they wanted. Now what they've realized, because of the Trump turnout and the real opposition that they're going to have going forward, they will view it as a once, perhaps in a generation, opportunity to change the system and get everything that they want done in 2 years with the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And a bare majority, if they get rid of the filibuster, is all they need. So I'm also setting that marker. If we lose, then it's fair and square. Fine. If we lose both the presidency and the Senate, we're going to have a talk, team, about what we're going to do going forward. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and you better pray this crime never happens to you. Here's how it works. The bad guys, they find your home's title online because it exists in the cloud. It's up in servers, and cyber thieves can actually hack into it. Then they use a quitclaim deed, kick you off your home's title, put themselves on, and then they'll take out loans against the equity in your home. You often won't find out about this until the payment notices arrive in the mail, or perhaps even a foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services don't protect you. You have to go with the experts I trust at Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock can help create a virtual barrier around your home's title. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check online at the site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. Friends, how do we win this fight? What does the battle ahead look like for us if victory is going to be in our sights? We have Dinesh D'Souza with us now. You know him from his best-selling books. He's an author, filmmaker, conservative commentator, columnist, and all the rest of it. Dinesh, great to have you back.
Hey, it's great. Good to be on the show.
Just give me your macro thoughts right now on where we are, Dinesh. We know the Trump campaign filing these lawsuits. How certain do you think we can be at this point that there's the kind of cheating underway that would change the election outcome unless it's addressed?
Well, every indication is that the Democrats have unfurled a sort of broad scheme, and the scheme can be described in three parts. Number one, flood the country with mail-in ballots. Number two, particularly in Democratic states where the local apparatus is Democratic, block the close observation and verification of ballots so that fraud can't be easily detected. And number three, basically say there's no evidence of fraud, and therefore all the fraudulent ballots should be lumped in with all the legal ballots under the generic slogan, count every vote. So in other words, there's no systematic effort to count only legal votes, but from the beginning, this was conceived as a way to ensure that there would be a blurring of the line between the legal and the illegal votes. Very similar, by the way, to the way the left treats immigrants. Legals are lumped in with illegals. If you come out against illegals, they say you're against immigration. So the same thing here. If you come out for basically fair, legal voting, they go, you're against counting the vote. They have a very different idea of what counting the vote means than we do.
You know, Dinesh, you touch on a few issues here that I've been trying to raise for the audience, and one in particular that I'd like to hear. I know I'm asking you to essentially play from across the chessboard from their side on this one, but what is the argument that even can be made in these cases where I've seen video and proof in Philadelphia, and that's been verified and reported on, of blocking Republican poll watchers? I've seen proof and video in Michigan of blocking poll watchers. Why poll watchers are allowed? They're legal. So what's what are they even saying about this other than shouldn't this look shady to people who are just honest observers?
Well, as in so many other cases, they don't have to give a reason because their assumption is we've got the media in our pocket. Nobody's going to ask us tough questions. The conservative reach is smaller than our reach. So same with the Bobulinski matter and with the Biden scandal. Their argument was let's just keep our lips tight on this one. Let's see how many people they can notify about it. Probably not enough. And so the ordinary guy is going to remain in the dark. And therefore, when we say things like, where's the evidence of voter fraud? The ordinary guy goes, well, yeah, I don't really see any evidence of voter fraud. And the reason is that this is not really just about a dead guy voted here and a dead guy voted there. It's about a systemic form of corrupting the vote so that it becomes no easy way to separate the good from the bad ballots. And the Trump campaign is on it, but they're on it sort of late in the game. They're on it sort of now. But what happens to all the ballots already counted that have been sort of tossed into a single pile?
How confident are you, Dinesh, that they'll be able to get the transparency here, that the Trump legal team and these challenges, that they will be able to at least find out the degree and scale of the fraud? I hear from people who say, even if we know the fix is in, I mean, they ran the Russia collusion playbook for 3 years, really 4 years in a sense, but 3 years without any real consequences. And even though it didn't have the ultimate aim they wanted, it did hurt the administration. So why should we think that this time around they'll be able to stop it?
Not only that, but the Russia collusion had sort of no expiration date, and this does. There's an expiration date, which is essentially Inauguration Day, and that sets a limit on what courts can actually do. Let's say there's a court that's convinced that there has been widespread cheating, let's say in Nevada. What are they going to do? Have another vote? Are they going to demand that every ballot be verified? Are they, in other words, a systematic recheck and recount? Or is the court going to say, well, let's try to frame this kind of narrowly, throw out some obviously bad ballots, which would not change the general picture of things at all? I think we have to watch, we have to press and watch and fight. And then at the end, we have to take stock of what's going on in its widest implications, because certainly if the Democrats are able to do widespread cheating and get away with it, there is no reason to believe that they won't do it all the time and consistently. And what's the point of having an election or even a country when your basic system is at such a level of breakdown that there's not only cheating, but then there's the cover up of the cheating, and there's no legal redress to be had? This is a very serious problem.
We're speaking to Dinesh D'Souza, best-selling author, filmmaker. I'm sure you've read and watched and heard his stuff now for many years. Dinesh, the social media blocking, you mentioned Bobulinski, the social media blocking that went on there, where the New York Post, I believe for over a week, had its Twitter account locked, and the Facebook throttling that went on, that I think was a pivot point, or that was a breaking point, better way to put it, for a lot of people, where they realized, okay, the fix is absolutely in from the perspective of the tech giants. Do you think that there's a better way, or are we beginning to reach new ways to get out the information? Because I have to say, right now, I see stuff that looks real from people that I know in our business who are showing documents, screenshots of documents, they're showing video, and then it disappears, or then I can't click on it. Or, how do we fight an information battle when they've got so many more battleships than we do?
Well, I think that is true. I also think that this is a scheme that was thought about by the other side beforehand. Think about it. Let's look back. When Trump kept talking about election cheating, some of us were like, why is he talking about that? That we're not there yet. That doesn't seem, but he anticipated this, and so did the other side. The reason the media was talking about things like, we better make sure Trump doesn't declare victory on election night. Why was that such a big issue for them beforehand? Not at the last minute where they might worry about a premature declaration, but beforehand, it's almost like we have to ensure that does not happen. Why? Because that's going to give us time overnight to then draw out the process and find the new ballots. Again, ask any statistician, what is the probability that 138,000 ballots might appear, all for Biden, not one for Trump? What are the odds of that? They're essentially zero. They're the chance of firing an arrow from a bow and hitting, a bullseye on Mars. That's the kind of odds you're talking about. So it seems to me that what the left is saying is it's a kind of a massive show of power. They're saying, we can do this. We've got the media in our pocket. We're going to count on you to be the namby-pambies that you guys normally are. You'll sulk and scream and shout for a few minutes, and then you'll settle down and accept it. This is sort of the Republican way. And therefore, we'll now ensure that we can keep doing this. And now we have you over a barrel. This is going to be our game plan going forward.
Dinesh, I talk about wartime conservatism to this audience, just meaning that we understand the stakes, the way this game is played now, the zero-sum, scorched earth attitude of the other side. With that framework, what do you want to see the Trump team and campaign and supporters out there do, or just how to view this between now and whenever this mess finally ends?
We have to, we can deal with losing. Generally, people do. You can lose a fair fight if the other guy really did knock you out. You can lose a fair race as long as you know that people started on the same line, a clock went on, a gun went off, and you came in seventh. But what this shows you is that when you have a system of any kind, it is not important for the people who win to go, oh, the rules are fair, because that's what you expect them to say. The rules obviously will be seen as fair by the people who won, even if they didn't start on the same line. The people who run the race, who organize the race, have the obligation of defending the integrity of the rules to the satisfaction of the people who lost. They have to be able to convince the losing side that we know you lost, so we understand you're disappointed, but you did get a fair shot. You had a chance to win. You just didn't happen to win. That's not what's happening here. The left is basically saying, hey, we got it, we won. The media is basically saying nothing to see here, folks. And we'll have to see what the court system has to say. But I think longer term, we have to think about, number one, how do we deal with the fact that we don't have a media outreach, not to 2 or 5 million people, but to 30 or 50 million people. Now, one of the very few people in the country who has that kind of reach already is Trump. And that's an important just sort of data point to keep in mind going forward. The second thing is that we've got to just realize that we are in a new type of fight with a new type of opponent. We need to be a new type of party. And that means that the old Republican way of sort of decorously losing and acting as if our serenity in the face of loss is a virtue. This is something we've just got to stop. Even right now, I can sense some timidity among elected Republicans to run to the side of Trump and say, hey, we're with him on this. It's almost like they feel like we did okay in the Senate. Now let's let Trump fight his own battles and we'll see what happens. With some of them even slyly thinking, well, it won't be the worst thing in the world if he loses because he won't be, he won't have the insider track and maybe we can make a better run next time. All this kind of Machiavellian thinking starts creeping in. But these people are whistling in the dark if they really think that this is something that's to their benefit. No, if we allow the other side to sort of steal the race, the consequences are very, very bad for us over the long haul.
You think Trump still has a chance of pulling this thing off?
I do. I wouldn't give him a good chance or an over 50% chance. Just in terms of the quote declaration of victory, I'm worried about what the courts can do. See, the media is moving into a situation where they want to create a fait accompli. He's won. That's it. Let's start. It's time for Prize Day. It's time for us, the transition team. It's time to start worrying about the coronavirus stimulus package. So they're going to want to move on really quickly, and they will do a lot at this point to appease us, to say in effect, this is we're not enemies, and this is just an election. Your life's going to go on as normal, etc. So there's going to be a sort of an attempt to sort of drug us into a certain kind of lethargic submission. But I think we have to press for every available measure, and we have to show some of the same admirable kind of determination that the other side consistently shows. Think of what the Democrats would do if the situation were reversed.
To the mat. No question about it. They would go all out, and I think that's very important for everybody listening right now to know, because if we don't match them in that ferocious determination, at least to get to the truth, and I agree with you about losing a fair fight, and I've been saying that all along, but now we got to make sure this fight's actually fair. Dinesh D'Souza, everybody. Follow him on social media if you're not already, on Twitter, on Facebook, and check out his latest movie. Dinesh, thanks so much. Always good to see you.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
I think Joe Biden thinks and knows and feels very strongly that job number one when he gets back is to expedite a vaccine to really rid this country of the virus.
Isn't that amazing? They're already starting with this. And I know that we've got this election battle to focus on, and I don't want to divert from the primary engagement too much here. But you can be sure, and that was some guy on MSNBC, you can be sure that if Biden ends up as the president, and guys, we got to face the reality that could end up happening here. And it may even be fair to say it is a better than 50-50 shot that's going to happen. I think it is. I think the odds now are probably 60-40 Biden over Trump. I think that's, and I always tell you the truth, and that's where I would say we are right now. Might even be 70-30. But you have weeks to go before what will be the monumental achievement, assuming everything goes according to plan, and it looks like it is. Weeks to go before you'll have the emergency authorization of a vaccine that will be already produced. Usually a vaccine maker goes through the very arduous and intensive process of making sure it's safe and then making sure it's effective. And you got, huge trials you got to do. It's wildly expensive. And in this instance, what they were able to do was to build up vaccine as they went. So they were they said, this is the vaccine we're going to try. We're confident it's going to work. And they were making the product beforehand, right? So instead of like developing a chocolate chip cookie and seeing if people like it and if it sells, they were developing the perfect chocolate chip cookie and we're already making warehouses full of that cookie for when they're finally going to stores with it. I don't know if that analogy was necessary or not, but I'm thinking about cookies right now, so I'm kind of hungry. But they will take credit Mark my words. Operation Warp Speed will just be taken by the Biden administration, put in its back pocket, and they'll be saying, see, and this is the part that's going to annoy me the most. I mean, there's so much about this that's going to drive me insane. You know this. But they will say there's a national mask mandate, and then they'll distribute the vaccine that Trump and his administration and his team and all the resources they arrayed actually handed to them. And the Biden team will distribute that vaccine while annoying the crap out of us with these idiotic mask mandates and these continued closures and all the fear-mongering around this. And as finally the virus does recede because largely of vaccine and herd immunity, they'll be saying, see, it's because of our mask mandate that this is happening. We listen to the science, and we're the ones that deliver the vaccine. So it's almost like the Trump team has run the football up to the 5-yard line, and now a different team is being handed the ball, and they get to just run it up the middle and say, see, look at how great we are. I'm just telling you, be prepared for it right now. I see this coming a mile away. And anybody who's honest, any observer that understands what's happening will say, you guys inherited this vaccine. Like, what do you mean? That you're not really responsible for that? They'll be saying, no, how dare you? We listen to the science. That's right. In between bites of food, masking up and listening to the science. That's what they'll tell you. So there's nothing happy about this. I just want you to be prepared for it. They will take credit for that vaccine.